how much of the accuracy of your data depends on dissemination of information by the press. And if the press is not telling the public what the public needs to know, the public needs to wait until it gets the information, and then you need to run the figures again. So I second very heartily the question from my Russian colleague.
Okay, now here is an email that I sent on 2015 to the Russian embassy. And I'm going to have to read this. Okay, here we go. Please give my regards to Mr. Byakov, the alternate executive director at the World Bank. I believe that my email to the Russian executive director's office was interfered with. The counters for my 2013 RT interview with Sophie Shevardnadze have been stuck at over 796,000 for the last 2 years. So we're now having a conversation about humanity and reality on the internet. Who is we? We are the world's people, and we're organized into nations, but we ignore the illegal company governments. And we're still making use of the Bretton Woods institutional framework because that is how we can carry out the global currency reset without descending into World War III. What do I mean by illegal company governments? Last week, I reminded people how governments are now companies. All of them are represented by CT Corporation System, which is owned by a Dutch company named Wolters Kluwer. And I tweeted, they want to control all of the property in the world. Let's talk a bit about what is in the tweet that I sent about the Dutch East India Company and the ultimate owner of Wolters Kluwer. This quote is from an email to me. Quote, I think we all need to step back, take a deep breath, consider this demonic Goliath, and realize what we're all up against. And that's the end of the email to me. I have repeatedly referred to the criminal conspiracy of the Bar Association and have advocated for their abolition. But this is a whole new ballgame. This umbrella brand and its ultimate parent company, Wolters Kluwer, involves every corporation, every judge, every attorney in the master plan to take everything they can from anybody they can, anywhere they can, and to do it, quote, legally. And here is a quote from a historian named George Bancroft, and he lived between 1800 and 1891. Quote, history interposes with evidence that tyranny and wrong lead inevitably to decay, that freedom and right, however hard may be the struggle, always prove resistless. That's the end of the quote. I also want to talk about an email to me from Wolfgang Struck that Wolfgang sent me back in 2014 when Izumi Takahashi, that is a Japanese journalist, and I had sent Wolfgang tickets for him to join us in Tokyo. I was living in Tokyo at the time. I tweeted this email on the 24th of September saying, quote, Jose Rizal was trustee for 2 quadrillion Treaty of Versailles bonds. And that was on the 13th of May. And this is, the subject was the Philippines from Wolfgang Struck to me. And this is what Wolfgang said. Having read this, I must have a real reason why I should not join you in Tokyo on May 17, 2014. I'm working on something very big. After decades of denial, we have reason to believe that the United States Treasury, in connection with the World Bank, IMF, and UN, is now willing to tackle the issue of old Federal Reserve boxes and pay for it. We started in the assumption that 2% of face value would be paid. That would be $60 billion per box in an environment where the biggest banks in the world are not allowed to hold accounts of more than $10 billion in cash. We have delivered detailed lists for 80 such boxes so far. We're willing to let go against a viable payment scheme in which would include a few central banks around the world. I'm the arranger between holder-seller party and the party that has the right to sell to United States Treasury. And I'm looking at huge amounts of money coming my way. You will understand that I cannot go away from this for a while. We hope this will be over before the end of May 2014. And now that's the end of Wolfgang's email to me. The reason that the Treaty of Versailles bonds are also in the global debt facility is because Jose Rizal also became the agent for the royalty who sold their gold to the network of global corporate control. Jose Rizal also represented the Vatican as the Black Pope, that is, the Superior General of the Jesuits. I'm quoting now from another email from Wolfgang Struck that was sent to the World Bank's country director in the Philippines, Mr. Joachim van Amsper, on the 14th of March 2011. And it was sent on March 14th, 2011. Since 1950, the assets deposited by Jose Antonio Diaz, the papal nuncio and trustee of both the Vatican and the former royal families of Europe, those who had abdicated their powers in the Treaty of Versailles under condition that they keep their gold secret, had been safely deposited in trust under the international law of bailment in banks. Many people get, and this is the end of Wolfgang's quote, now I'm telling you, many people get how we're going forward. Here is a comment on my last video about the bank wars and Andrew Jackson from Wendy Koval. Quote, "Thank you again, Karen, as the truth is